Hi guys, Mr. Muscato with you again. So this is part two of the Imported Images project tutorial. In part one, we talked about importing images, right? Importing JPEGs or PNGs or GIF files, turning them into symbols, and creating a basic motion tween with them. In this particular tutorial, part two, we will take a look at the transform tool and how to control rotation with that tool. All right, so as a reminder, we are basically putting together an object that looks like this. Okay, you'll notice a couple of things in terms of the objects as they rotate. All right, so you'll see the football as it moves from upper left to the center of the stage is performing a full counterclockwise rotation, and then it performs a full clockwise rotation. And then also the football, the not the football, but the OU logo and the helmet are basically doing the same thing. As they get larger and smaller, they are rotating 360 degrees, either clockwise or counterclockwise. In the last project, we had some rotation with the rotating face project. We had some rotation, but you would have noticed that any changes that we make with the free transform tool, we could only accomplish a maximum of 180 degrees. And we really could not control the direction of rotation. Flash basically took a look at the image in terms of rotation at the first frame and at the last frame, and then basically decided which way to rotate the object to conserve movement. All right, so uh, that was all well and good for that project. But for this project, we definitely want to be able to control not only the direction, but how many rotations we can accomplish. Okay, so we definitely want at least one full rotation, either clockwise or counterclockwise, and if we want to add more than that, we certainly should be able to control that. All right, so let's take a look at Flash, and not the free transform tool, but the transform tool. All right, so as we left off the project in the last tutorial, we had imported our image, we had turned that image into a symbol, and we had added a basic motion tween. All right, and there it is. Okay, we know that the free transform tool on the right hand side, all right, is this one. And remember that the tools over here on the right hand side are basically visual tools. So we create things on site, right? If I resize the object, okay, it's basically based on sight. Okay, it looks to be about the right size, right? If I rotate an object, I rotate it to a point where it's approximately where I want it to be. Okay, but you'll notice here that this object, right, is rotated, but Flash controls the rotation based on the beginning and the ending orientation. For our purposes, I'm going to put this guy back to where he was, okay, at a point of zero rotation. All right, what I want is to be able to control this object from a specific rotational point. I don't want Flash to decide for me which way to rotate. I want to control that rotation myself. So to do that, we take a look at this center panel, or the panel to the left of the library and of the properties tab, and we're going to take a look at the transform tool, which is an absolute editor. Okay, so when we click on that, we'll see that we're really interested in the rotation. Okay, so just a quick primer here, right? So what we have up here is we have the symbol size, right? So horizontally and vertically, it is 45.4% of the original symbol size in the last frame. And right now it has a rotation of 0.2 degrees. So obviously when I rotate it back with my free transform tool, it wasn't a perfect reset back to zero. If I take a look at the object in frame 1, and at the free transform tool, you'll see that the symbol is at 39.8% of its original size. Okay, and the rotation is 0. So when I run my my motion tween here, all right, the object will increase in size a little bit. Let's make that a little bit more obvious. All right, so now you can see that in the last frame, I'm at 85.2%. Right, in the first frame, I am at 39.8%. So we're moving from 39% to 80-something percent. Okay, so there is, we can control very precisely that rate of growth if we want to. Okay, right now though, what we are interested in is our rotation. So I'm going to move this guy back a little bit onto the stage. I'll let him grow a little. All right, but ultimately what I'm looking for is the rotation. All right, so I'm going to set a rotation at the last keyframe. So I want the object to start at 0 degrees of rotation, and I want the object to rotate counterclockwise one full rotation, 360 degrees. Flash measures rotation in terms of degrees and in terms of negative or positive rotation. Negative rotation, right, a net negative rotation means that the object will spin counterclockwise. A net positive rotation means that the object will spin clockwise. So if I want one full rotation counterclockwise, the orientation of my object in the last frame needs to be negative 360 degrees if it's set to 0 at the first frame. Using the free transform tool, I select the object in the last frame. I will change this rotational value to negative 360 degrees. Okay, and then I'm going to go back to the first frame and make sure that it is set to 0. Okay, a lot of times what happens is Flash will change the beginning value if we've changed the last value. So I want to just make sure that everything is the same, right? So here in the first frame, the object is set to 0 degrees. In the last frame, the object is set to negative 360 degrees. So even though it looks exactly like the first and the last frames have the same orientation, they really don't. Flash, what happens is it takes the rotational value in the last frame, subtracts the rotational value from the first frame, comes up with a net number, and then controls the rotation that way. Okay, so there we have from 0 to negative 360, and that gives us one full counterclockwise rotation. If I want now positive rotation, clockwise rotation, from this point to the upper right-hand corner, let's say that we want to rotate this object 1.5 turns clockwise, okay, as it moves up to the top. So in other words, right, the schooner will end up upside down in the upper left-hand corner. All right, but that's the rotation that, let's say, that we want. I'm going to add another keyframe. So remember, we can either rotate positive or negative. We can either grow or shrink, okay, with a single piece of a motion tween. If I need 2 different effects, I need another set of keyframes, or at least another keyframe where the end of my first motion tween ends, right? That's the beginning of my next motion tween. All right, so I'm going to go out to frame 80. I'm going to press the F6 key. I'm going to reposition my object, so now I'm working in frame 80. Reposition my object to where I want it to go. Using the free transform tool, I'm going to shrink him a little bit. Right, I could also control that using the transform tool if I need an absolute number, but usually that's overkill. Okay, in this last frame, frame 80, I want to define the rotation. All right, so remember that it's a net rotation. So if I'm at negative 360 degrees at this point, at frame 50, and I want clockwise a rotation and a half, okay, so that difference is going to be, the difference needs to be what? 360 plus 180 degrees, 540 degrees of net rotation. Well, if I'm at negative 360 at this point, at the end, I need to be at positive 180 degrees. So I'm going to use the transform tool. I'm going to change this value to 180 degrees. You'll see that the schooner, the orientation there is upside down. Okay, but now watch what we get, right? So we get counterclockwise rotation and then 1.5 clockwise rotation. Okay, so that's the net difference, right? So if you take 180 degrees at the end, subtract negative 360 degrees, right? So minus a negative is plus a positive, so we get 180 plus 360 is 540 degrees of rotation. I think that math is right, yes. 180 and 360 is 540, so we're in good shape there. Right, so then at the end, let's say that I want this object to then rotate, right, clockwise, so that it is upright again. So I want half of a rotation clockwise. Okay. So I'll add a few more frames here. I'll go out to maybe frame 110. All right, press the F6 key. Reposition my object. Okay, so where is it going to end up? And I want positive 180 degrees. Okay, well, if I am at 180 degrees here, and I want it to rotate clockwise for half a rotation, that means that I need to add 180 to this value, so that my ending value is going to be positive 360. Okay, so here, transform tool, 360 as a positive value. Right, and boom. All right, so I have counterclockwise rotation because that's a negative value, and then I have positive rotation, 1.5 going diagonally up the screen, and then half a rotation ending up. All right, so that's a little bit about the transform tool and controlling not only the direction but how many rotations to add. In the final part of this tutorial, part 3, we'll put the whole project together. All right, and we'll see how I put together the demo project. All right, so that's it for this part 2, and we'll see you in part 3.